So I've got a couple of pretty horrible COVID-related stories. Sadly, these aren't fun stories. These aren't stories to make fun of people. These are really stories that are pitiable stories, but also just another indictment of the completely backward situation we have in this country with who people, or at least who some people are willing to trust when it comes to medical advice and the way propaganda spreads and disinformation. So let's start with the first one. New Mexico health officials suspect two people dead from ivermectin poisoning. That's USA Today. Similarly, KOB reporting two New Mexicans have died of ivermectin toxicity per state health officials. State health leaders say more people are taking ivermectin to treat COVID-19. In some cases, it's been deadly. The New Mexico Department of Health said two people in New Mexico have died from ivermectin toxicity. Not much is known about either patient, but one of them was battling a severe case of COVID-19. It's a serious issue. We need to watch it, says Dr. David Scrace, acting secretary of the New Mexico Department of Health. New Mexico health leaders are sounding the alarm on ivermectin. Poison Control said there have been 20 exposures to the drug this year alone, already double the usual amount. We've had cases of seizures, hallucinations, coma. You know it can be very dangerous if you take a high enough dose. Officials say the majority of the exposures were in the past few weeks, most to treat or prevent COVID. Health experts say the data just isn't there to prove it works. Our medical advisory team has looked at this 3 times, still does not feel people should be taking it, and of course, the FDA has not yet approved it. Ivermectin is almost exclusively used to treat parasites in horses and cattle, in rare instances, humans. Same drug, different formulation, different dose. If you take too much, you go into a coma, you may have seizures, you may have hallucinations. It's basically a neurological toxin. Recent studies have shown it has some effect on COVID, but at a pretty significant cost. When it was combined with standard therapy, it had lower death rate and progression to severe disease. But in that in vitro study, you needed clearly toxic doses to achieve the effect on virus replication. I think that's an important detail to mention here. We had that call from a biomedical researcher a couple weeks ago who said, you know, you have to understand that when a study says that in vitro, it kills COVID particles, deactivates COVID, whatever term you want to apply there. In vitro and in vivo are two different things, but the relative dose of what you can do in vitro could be completely toxic in humans. And where I continue to go back is it's really strange to me not to take something tested, given to billions, and FDA approved, the Pfizer vaccine, and instead take ivermectin. I just don't get it. Like, even if it's true that it might be slightly effective for COVID, if it's in addition to all the standard stuff, but it can have real side effects, which is dubious, but let's imagine that's the case. Why accept the cost when we have a vaccine that is more effective? And I don't know that we're necessarily going to get an answer to that right now. The USA Today article adding a few other details that I wanted to mention. The confirmation comes weeks after the state suspected one person was fatally poisoned by ivermectin. The antiparasitic drug has not been approved for treatment of viral illnesses such as COVID-19, but has attracted popular advocacy, particularly among skeptics of the vaccines, treatments, and public health measures, such as masking in public, including popular podcaster Joe Rogan. The FDA warned people against taking it. Scrace, the director of New Mexico's Department of Health, has previously expressed concern about pseudoscientific messaging about the drug, which is approved for human and vet use against unrelated conditions. The state's Poison Control Center reported last week calls related to ivermectin tripled compared to 2020, different than the previous report of doubling that I mentioned. This is also an important detail. Veterinary formulations are not approved for human use under any conditions because the drug is often highly concentrated for animals and the medications include ingredients not approved for human use. So that's ivermectin in New Mexico. Next, we have a new one now, hydrogen peroxide vapor. Yes.